the security forces, the Nirantas army, the police is much more reluctant to show that kind of brutality that we saw during the woman life freedom oppression.
On economic development, the Shah was quite successful. On political development, he failed. So, and the Islamic Republic failed on both accounts.
Reza Pahlavi, when people, especially the youth in Iran, look at him, they see a modern man.
You know what? Why don't we just pause and just savor that moment and enjoy that, the feeling, the thought of the fall of the dictator.
Well, hi there, salam dostan aziz. This is episode 404 of Roqe, Iran Rises. It's not economic unrest, it's a new revolution. Whether that revolution achieves its mission in the coming weeks, or whether it takes more months or years, right now the people of Iran are speaking through their blood, sweat, and tears. It's not economic unrest, it's a new revolution. On the 9th day of mass nationwide protests, let's make absolute clear to the world's headline writers that brave Iranians in the streets are not there because they don't like the price of bread or the plight of the currency or that they prefer a different mullah instead. We're way past that point. It's not economic unrest, it's a new revolution. People protesting food prices don't chant for the fall of a system. People demanding subsidies don't burn symbols of authority. People worried only about inflation don't keep coming back after funerals. This is not transactional anger and selection, it is existential rejection. It is not economic unrest, it's a new revolution. And you know what? The regime's own behavior is the greatest indicator. If this were about economic unrest, you might see concessions, you'd see scapegoated ministers, you'd see cosmetic reforms. Instead, we are seeing mass arrests, live fire, internet shutdowns, military language used against civilians. Authoritarian regimes don't deploy repression at this scale to fix grocery bills. This isn't about bread, it's about breath. Not the price of living, but the cost of surviving a system that has outlived its legitimacy. Call it what it is, because the people in the streets are having their say, and what it is a revolution in play. It's January 5th, 2026. This is Roqe. Hi there, welcome to episode 404 of Roqe. Happy New Year. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. Hello to you from Toronto. Salam dostan aziz. Durud bashum. I hope you are doing well wherever you are tuning in from around the world. Well, today marks the launch of something new here on Roqe, reminiscent of what we did during the uprising of 2022 after the killing of Mahsa Amini. Given what is unfolding in Iran and given the pace, scale, and stakes of this moment, we've made the decision to begin doing 2 episodes a week alongside our regular Thursday editions. Mondays will now be dedicated to a special ongoing series we're calling Iran Rises. These are not recap shows, and they're not hot takes. They're not exercises in mere speculation. We hope this is a space for careful analysis. We hope a grounded reporting, informed perspective as events continue to move, sometimes by the hour. So we're not a breaking news show. We're trying to bring on Iranians of all different stripes to give us their views, as we have done for almost 6 years. On this first Iran Rises edition, we're bringing together a panel of journalists and analysts who are closely connected to developments inside Iran, who are in constant contact with sources on the ground, and who I'd like to believe approach this moment with both urgency and discipline. Nazanin Ansari in London, Kamyar Mahinsa in Vancouver, and Ali Fathollah-Nejad in Berlin. The goal today is simple: to understand where things stand right now, what is genuinely new about this phase of the uprising or revolution, what the Islamic Republic's behavior is telling us, and what the coming days may hold. No crystal balls, no wish casting, just clear-eyed conversation about a revolution in motion. Let's go. Today's episode of Roqe is brought to you in part by Stellar Law. Stellar Law is a boutique litigation firm in Toronto led by its founder and principal lawyer Rana Nosrat Pana. The firm operates on a simple premise: complex disputes demand disciplined thinking and meticulous preparation. Representing both individuals and businesses, the team handles commercial conflicts, criminal matters, sensitive personal or financial disputes with a measured analytical approach. Clients turn to Stellar Law for creative strategy, direct guidance, advocacy that is as practical as it is exacting. Rana and her team are known for distilling intricate issues into decisive action, navigating high-stakes matters with discretion, focus, and unwavering professionalism. For clients seeking representation grounded in judgment, rigor, and strategic clarity, Stellar Law offers something increasingly rare: a litigation practice built on preparation, trust, and results. You can also speak to them in Persian or in English. Check out Stellar Law at stellarlaw.ca on Instagram, at stellarlaw.ca. Thanks again to Rana Nosrat and the team at Stellar Law. All right, let's get to our Iran Rises panel for today. She is the managing editor of Kayhan London and Kayhan Life, an Iranian journalist and analyst with decades of experience covering Iran. Nazanin Ansari joins us from London. He is a popular commentator in social media, but also a police officer by profession, bringing a frontline law enforcement perspective to questions of crowd control, state force, escalation, and what the regime's tactics reveal about its level of confidence or fear. Kamyar Mahinsa joins us from Vancouver, and he is a political scientist and Iran expert whose work focuses on the Islamic Republic's domestic legitimacy crisis and its broader regional and global implications. Dr. Ali Fathollah-Nejad joins us from Berlin. Hello to you all.
Thank you.
Hello, Jian. Good to be here.
It's wonderful to be on your program.
Nice to have you. Two of you were actually on our New Year's Day show, which we had pre-recorded, and events have so quickly taken interesting twists and turns in Iran that the show was outdated by the time of New Year's Day. I mean, you had such wonderful things to say, but so we're recording this right now. We're putting it out in a couple of hours. Let me start going to all three of you, saying, when you strip away the slogans, the social media noise, if you will, what is materially different about this moment, this insurrection, this uprising, whatever you want to call it, compared to previous ones? Ali?
Well, I think there is a confluence of an aggravated economic crisis whose radius is growing larger and larger and affecting much more people than previously. Plus the fact that there is external pressure on the Islamic Republic with the threat of a renewed military confrontation with Israel and the United States. And the third factor, which is new in my view, is the state of perplexity in which the Iranian leadership finds itself in.
What does that mean, the state of perplexity?
So they don't know what to do. I mean, this state of perplexity, in my view, has already started with the unraveling of the axis of resistance in 24. So where, Iran lost all those assets and, this defense strategy that they've been building up for decades. So this kind of defense and security strategy collapsed. And now the economic crisis is so grave, and also on that front, they don't know what to do.
Nazanin, same to you. Is it different this time, and if so, how?
Thank you very much. Yes, following up on Ali's comments, certainly the Islamic Republic that we see this time around is not the same as strength-wise as it was in 2022. It has lost its proxies. It has lost its biggest ally in Syria. Secondly, these protests started in the business and markets and the bazaar. And this sector was missing in presence last time in 2022. In a sense, this slogan of livelihood is this time round of being able to live is much more palatable than, the more ideal elements that were contained in women life freedom. But as importantly, there's a third difference, and that is that the presence of a political symbol, an embodiment of the aspirations of those on the streets in Iran. Whereas in 2022, we had civil activists, as civil leaders, influencers. We really did not have one alternative. And this binary change between what we saw before and this black and white, the Islamic Republic or overthrow, and Reza Pahlavi as the embodiment of the aspirations, this is what is very different. So, yes, the economy was the trigger, livelihood was the trigger, but what is really beating in the heart of this protest is a desire for change, and there is an alternative way, and that is the alternative that is being proposed by Prince Reza Pahlavi, which is the separation of state from the mosque. It is territorial integrity. It is about also, deciding the form and the nature of the government and the regime in a popular referendum after the overthrow of the Islamic Republic.
Okay. We'll come back to it, some of the points you just made. Cam, same question to you to begin with.
I totally agree with everything that Ali and Nazanin said. I just like to add that we can probably generalize it into two different things: internal and external. Internal issues, the internal difference between Mahsa Amini woman life freedom movement of 2022-23 was that the grievance was one thing. It was the death of Mahsa Amini, and it was the hijab issue that the government very, very skillfully turned everything into just the grievance of hijab, and they were able to manage that. But this uprising, the current situation in Iran, internally, we can say that the grievance is much larger in scope. We're talking about social, economic, and political grievances that people have, which involves a larger population of Iran. And I think Nazanin mentioned that as well, that you got a larger portion of the population that is now joining this grievance. Yes, Bazari people, the business people, and other people. But all of these, it's not about one thing. It's not about they want to make it about the economic, but it's not. It's more than that. So the root of the uprising is the freedom and democracy and the future. And I think that people have realized that, and that's the internal. The external part that we can all agree on is that with the geopolitical things that are going on outside of Iran, the government of Iran, the Islamic government, has lost, is at its weakest point in the history of their existence. And that's because of everything that's been happening around them. They're losing their tentacles, the monstrous tentacles like Hamas and Hezbollah and Bashar Assad, and the last one, Maduro. That was another ally that they have lost. And Putin is struggling in Ukraine. And of course, we have to mention President Trump, who is extremely unpredictable. And his presence in the White House, the show of force of U.S. has never been seen before, or at least it's been a long, long time that U.S. has had such a big political impact on the world. So with him in power, I think things are looking very promising.
Okay. You mentioned that this isn't just about economics and the price of bread. In my opening essay, I titled it, "This is not economic unrest, this is a new revolution," to kind of make this point that however long this revolution is going to take, whether it's a couple of weeks or months or again a few years, that it isn't just a grievance about prices or currency or that said, Ali, it really went from 0 to 100 this time in a way that we haven't seen in the past. If the flashpoint or the trigger was the currency crisis or economics, it didn't take long for the chance to be death to the dictator. That's something that usually gestates a while before we get to that point, even with Mahsa Amini. How do you explain that in this case? The natural explanation would be that the Iranian people are fed up and any trigger is going to lead them to that place. But did it surprise you how quickly it went there?
Actually, I didn't realize that there was a major change vis-a-vis previous protest uprisings and waves. I mean, if you look at the day, the 2017-18, the turn of the year uprisings, so which is precisely, how many years? 8 years ago, right?
You're talking about Aban?
So yeah. So no,
No,
the day
pre
protest.
Aban. Yeah, yeah.
So before, before
90s.
Aban, which was in November 2019, we had the day protest. And in my view, and in my analysis, this constituted the start of a long-term revolutionary process. Back in the days, in December 2017, the context was also, I mean, the protest, the uprising was triggered by the socioeconomic questions. So there were higher food prices and so forth. There was also a lot of social frustration in the wake of the JCPOA's uneven, distribution of dividends that didn't reach the bulk of Iranian society. So this was the particular kind of context. But back then, and also it was instrumentalized back then by the domestic opponents of then centrist President Hassan Rouhani. But those protests also spiraled out of control and they got political immediately. I think the same happened in November 2019 after the overnight tripling of the fuel price, which saw, according to Interior Ministry figures, 200,000 people, as opposed to the previous day protest, 50,000 people taking to the streets of around over 100 Iranian cities and towns. And the same happened with in September of 22 with the Women Life Freedom Uprising. So it was a sociocultural trigger at that point, but it instantly became political because you cannot separate politics in Iran from economics and also from social and cultural issues, especially from economics, because after all, it's the same oligarchic elite that is monopolizing economic and political power in his own hands. So, and people are fully aware of that. So, hence, the speed at which economic grievances become very much political, and it's actually about the system after all.
It does feel, though, that even in 2022, I mean, we were there, we were doing programs like this, and the sort of everything from the chants to the intentions to the nature of the protests was a lot more diverse. There were a lot more diverse interests, it seems, sort of coalescing, maybe for diverse reasons. This does feel, I don't want to say unified, because obviously that's a treacherous word or a difficult word to use in terms of the Iranian community, but the fact that it immediately went to a place of regime change, whether it's the ability to do that or not is going to happen in terms of what's happening on the streets, felt different to me. Also, I don't remember Javid Shah. I don't remember the Pahlavi name being chanted in the streets 3 or 4 years ago the way it is now. Ali, do you see that as a difference?
I'm not sure about the Pahlavi factor at all, to be honest. So I'm not sure if I agree with Nazanin on that point. I'm very cautious about whether the slogans we're hearing out of Iran are actually talking about Reza Pahlavi or they're talking about Reza Shah, for instance, or who was, quite successful in pushing back the power of the clergy. It's true that Reza Pahlavi is, quite popular. There is no doubt about that. but I'm not sure about the extent of which is that popular.
But if they say Pahlavi Barmigarde, if Pahlavi is coming back, presumably they don't mean Reza Shah is coming back from the dead.
Sure, but then again, I'm not sure how representative those slogans are. So this is my first point. The second point is I'm not sure, despite the fact that the former crown prince has been pursuing a democratic discourse over many years, which has been in line with some of the discourse that we've been hearing from Iranian civil society, of course. But I'm not sure about his actual political, ability to bring about change in Iran. So I'm lacking to see the concrete steps that would be needed in this regard.
Nazanin, do you want to respond to that?
Well, Ali's correct. I mean, if you want to look at this protest and go back to 2017, it is the 2017 that actually was the big, bang for a change in the nature of protests in Iran. Up until then, we used to have Allahu Akbar, here Allahu Akbar, or people going on the rooftops at night and chanting verses from the Quran. From 2017 onwards, we see different slogans. Neither Gaza nor Lebanon, my life only for Iran. And then Reza Shah, Ruhat Shad. It becomes more secular and more and more about the Pahlavis and Reza Shah. Now, what is different about this time? We see a concretization of slogans and of aspirations and of wants. And these are young men and young women, students. The protests have broadened across transportation networks, labor unions, and they all do realize that from all the, when you look at the horizon, the political, the social horizon of leaders and influencers, there is one name that ticks all the boxes. It is cultural, it is historical, it is institutional, but also it is personable. Reza Pahlavi, when people, especially the youth in Iran, look at him, they see a modern man. Women look at him and they see a modern father, a husband. So his nature, and basically for the past 40 years, he's been on the scene. And he has a proven track record of what he says and what he means. And in the past few years, specifically in the past, since 2023 to now, we see an organization around him. Now, people might like the organization, the team, the people on it, or not, but they have been really for 3 years building up networks, not only there in America, in the United States, in diaspora, on the international scene, but also inside Iran. And in a way, for the Iranian psyche, it is very easier to say, okay, black and white, let's choose whether we want the Islamic Republic, Khamenei, or whether we want someone modern looking, someone whose history, whose family represents the best and the golden period of economic prosperity in Iran. And he has programs, and he's got a good team around him, and he has built networks. That's why he is 2 or 3 steps, maybe even more, ahead of other groups.
Can I pick up on that, but slightly move the ball along here to ask what the three of you have been hearing from people, your contacts, your friends, your family, maybe inside Iran, and what you're hearing inside Iran that is not being broadcast or talked about outside of Iran. Maybe start with you, Cam. And I'm particularly interested if you're hearing anything in particular from people that you know who are involved with security forces there, or the kind of job that you do in Vancouver.
Yes, what I'm hearing, I have a lot of obviously contacts in Iran in the Iran Tizami in the police force, and what is again going back different than in this movement, this uprising currently than the woman life freedom is that the security forces, the Iran Tizami, the police is much more reluctant to show that kind of brutality that we saw during the woman life freedom oppression of the people on the streets, and that's what we're not seeing. And the reason I think part of it is because they are also part of they have a grievance as well. What is affecting the reason, the trigger, what's happening affects them as well, and they have also realized that that the people are there and what they're doing is impacts them, and it's for them as well, and they are part of the people. And that's what we're seeing, that there's a lot of the, at least in the police force. We're not talking about Basij or Sapat, right? So but the police force, I think what I see is that first of all, a lot of them have moved on. They have businesses, they open businesses. I know so many people that even contacted me and they say that you know what, I can't do this anymore. This is not what I signed up for. And especially after the woman life freedom, there was a massive exodus from the police, and they can't replace them. So right now, I think the Islamic Republic is struggling with recruiting personnel that would stand in front of the people. So a lot of them are now with the people. That's why we're getting a lot of videos from Iran that the police are even the anti-riot squad is trying to negotiate. I know that's a strategy, that's fine, but you can tell that they are reluctant. They're using that strategy. They're just basically extending the overall strategy of, yes, let's establish a rapport and dialogue with the people, see if you can just manage the protesters that way. But
I mean, to be fair, today's edition of Roqe is brought to you in part by I Welcome. I Welcome is the one and only Iranian-Canadian company in premier tour, travel, and limo transportation. I Welcome redefines every journey with a modern fleet and professional drivers, ensuring that whether you're enjoying a scenic city tour, traveling for business, or arriving in style at a special event, your experience is unmatched with comfort and reliability. With I Welcome, your ride becomes a luxurious extension of your lifestyle. And I've had the pleasure of riding in one of the luxury cars that Amin and his team at I Welcome have in their fleet. And if you are anywhere in the Greater Toronto area, you must use them for your travel needs. You can find them at iwelcome.ca. Once again, that's iwelcome.ca. To be fair, we are still seeing videos of people being shot and anti-riot forces, or whatever they are, not being particularly kind to people. So that still exists, but it's really fascinating to hear what you're saying, because that's been the hope, right? That the way, the path forward has to involve at some point, whether it's the police or the military or presumably all of them, defecting to the side of the people, if you will. What are you hearing about this news that came out today that the regime wants to double down by sending 50,000 of its top military folks to the streets to clean everything up and really crush this thing this week?
You know what? There's a lot of rhetoric coming from the government. We saw that during the 12-day war against Israel. We saw the same thing. They were talking about, we're going to level this and level that. We have this. It's all empty. And you know what? I think what they're doing, that's also a sign that the regime is desperate. That's also part of it. And I think they need to, and I guess, have some kind of a reply to what President Trump said, in terms of he made a point that U.S. will get involved if you start slaughtering people on the streets. So I think they're going to have to respond to that, and their response is always the same. And I don't think this is any different. They are scared, they are cornered, and they are just struggling to find any way to bring back that fear into people, because what they're seeing is that people basically are coming to the streets and saying we got nothing to lose. So when you're faced with something like that, you are going to have to kind of escalate, or at least in words, you're going to have to show that we're ready, we're prepared to defend the regime at any cost. But in reality, I don't know. It could be empty. It's just empty threats, as we saw.
Ali, Cam is making this point about the essentially that the regime appears to be on the run. Earlier, he said this is the weakest the regime has ever been. Do you concur? Do you believe that that's true?
I think he made a very astute and incisive observation. And I've been talking about the possibility of the Syrianization of the Islamic Republic. What does that mean? So that means that we're going to perhaps see the same conditions in Iran that in the Syrian case allowed for the 10 or 11-day collapse of the regime. There were two important factors in Syria. One was the realization by the bulk of Iranian society, by the bulk of Syrian society, that the Assad regime is going to plunge the country into further tragedies, and whatever comes next going to be better than Assad. And secondly, because of the aggravated economic crisis, we've seen that the armed forces of Syria, and including the Praetorian Guard of Assad, were only paid very meager, to put it very diplomatically, meager wages. So that at the end of the day, they decided not to fight the regime change offensive against the president, against Assad. So and then the rest of the story is this very rapid collapse. So in my view, and this is in my view also shared by people inside Iran's leadership, the prospect of this kind of Syrianization of the Islamic Republic is very real, because the two factors could also be applied to the Iranian case. First, the hopelessness that things going to be better, even worse that as long as the Islamic Republic remains in power, the tragedy is going to deepen day by day. So whatever comes next going to be better, and so this is one. And secondly, there is concern that the state will not be able to sufficiently pay and fund the repressive apparatus, so including the IRGC, although those people inside the IRGC do enjoy some privileges, right? But they also suffer from this very high inflation, which is only officially at 50%, but probably unofficially much higher than that. So there is a socioeconomic rift even within the IRGC between, on one side, the rank and file, who are suffering from the same kind of economic grievances that Kamyar talked about, the police force suffering from. On the other hand, you have the generals that are basically an oligarchic class. So the question is, if things get worse in Iran, if tension's going to build up further, will this rank and file go and kill, as it did in the past, to bring into power an IRGC oligarchy to rule Iran after Khamenei?
Well, this is what everything you've just talked about, and jumping off what Kamyar said about the folks in the military forces or the IRGC feeling the economic impact of the situation in Iran as well, seems like a really pivotal, a really sort of profound place to be in terms of any kind of crystal ball idea of where this is going. When you talked about the Syrian example, I'm curious. One of the things that gets brought up, I was at a gathering last night, and there was one person there who was adamant that change is not going to come to Iran. Why? Because Sepah, because the IRGC is so big, 1 million or more strong, and it has its tentacles so much in so many different sectors throughout the country that it isn't something that can be easily overturned. What is your response to that, Ali?
that it's a robust. No, I don't think that it's. Of course, I mean, there's also the other side of that coin, which is that maybe there is also the calculation that they're gonna also profit in a post-Khamenei system, much in which the RGC is going to be much more dominant. But what we've seen in Iran over the past 1 or 2 decades is that in much more aggravated economic crisis that and the RGC, although it has a lot of economic power, a lot of political power, has not been able to solve those problems. So I'm not so optimistic about the RGC being a robust monolith that gonna be standing with an iron fist forever against those uprisings. I'm not sure about that.
Nazanin?
Well, I do agree that this worsening economic situation is also affecting the livelihood of the law enforcement officers. I mean, they have over 20 IRGC commanders were also killed during the war with Israel. But at the same time, they realized that this IRGC and the state was not able to really maintain the security of Iranian skies for more than 6 or 7 hours. At the same time, they've also heard how much money is being funneled from Iran to Hezbollah fighters, uh, to Gaza, to the Houthis, to Hamas, and what they are suffering from, the livelihood that their livelihood is so miserable. I mean, we have been receiving many videos and statements from IRGC, from Basij, from the police. One specifically, which really went viral, was this second sergeant who was addressing Mr. Khamenei, and it wasn't as if he was one person that was against Khamenei. He was addressing him in a very formal way, and he was saying that he is because of financial desperation, this has pushed him to consider selling his kidney. And so basically, all of these things coming together, and what Ali also mentioned, the internal cohesion within the state structure itself, between Mr. Khamenei's faction, the reformist faction, within them there's a schism, and then between the principalists. So there is a mayhem as far as political cohesion at the top end of the state. Having said that, again, when we think back to when Prince Reza Pahlavi started his campaign, he reached out to the IRGC, to the military, to those whose heart really beats for Iran, and said, "Come and join me. And if you join me now, you will be spared the justice of, after the overthrow." And every day he has been mentioning, giving out statements. And tens of thousands, I think more than 50,000 in the first day signed up. So there is that cohesion within the state that is different this time, that is lacking. There's also a cohesion within the ranks of the military and IRGC, not only for political reasons, but also because of the financial corruption, economic corruption, and also, again, they do see this time that there is a way out, that there is an alternative. In the previous protests, we did not have that alternative. Now, will this alternative be able to maintain the streets, the protests, and then secure and provide them with safety? That's another question. And that's where the decision by other political parties come into the picture, in the sense that once we see crowds increasing from tens of thousands, 20,000 to hundreds of thousands and a million, it is then that the security forces will think twice, and it will be the people protecting each other. So it is this time fear has changed sides. Certainly, the establishment, the Islamic Republic, is fearful. But from now on forward, we need to see more Iranians from different political leanings come and join hands and provide safety for those on the streets in Iran. It is very heart-wrenching for me to receive. I mean, today we were carrying a report that based on now, these are the reports that we have received. Human rights organizations still have to go and verify them. But what we have received is that over 100 young people from 17 under have been arrested. But at the same time, we also hear, and this is the fear of the Islamic Republic, they have stopped all classes of university and all tests. It will be online because they're scared for students to get together and start demonstrating. So yeah.
Thank you for all of that. I know I can't keep you guys here forever, so I'm gonna I've got two quick questions before we end. First of all, I mean, there's so much in the ether that there's so much to just talk about it. There's of course the Trump's threat via Twitter and the literal action with regards to Maduro and whether there's parallels and possibilities around that. But there was something that came out in the last 24 hours that I want to ask you all personally about, which is that this idea of Khamenei organizing, him and those around him organizing a potential escape and exile in Moscow. And I want to ask you all how plausible you think something like that is, and whether, if Khamenei were to be removed from the equation, whether that would lead in your mind to escalation, in other words, the revolution grows, or fragmentation of these protests because the head of the snake is no longer in town. Let's start with you, Cam, and then Ali and Nazanin.
It's totally plausible, and it makes sense for the government to have, obviously, Plan B, Plan C, and Plan D, and so forth. We saw the same thing happen in Syria, where Bashar Assad fled to Russia, and that's where he's living. So there's not too many places they can go. I think Venezuela was one of the options for the government and the higher government officials, Khamenei, his sons, and people around him. But I think with the fall of Maduro, that door is closed. So I don't see too many other places that they can be accepted, except for Moscow. And it's very plausible that that is an option available and it's being planned, because they have to consider that as well, because of they may talk big, but they know that their grip on power is slipping.
And how do you believe that would affect the street?
Well, you know what? It's hard to predict what would happen. There will be chaos. There will be turmoil. There will be a transition of a difficult transition, for sure. But I think what's happening right now, what's being planned outside of Iran is that bringing people together with the hope of the alternative, which is Reza Pahlavi. So I think that is one of the things that may help during that transition, and people need to know. This is unknown. People hate the unknown. We're all like that. We want to know what happens after A, after B, what happens, and I think that's also being in place and it's being planned. So we see planning going on inside Iran and then plan outside. But there will be a difficult transition.
Okay.
But you know what? Every revolution is like that. It is messy. It's heartbreaking with the loss of life and blood. but at the end, it's something that will bring people to where they need to be. Iran,
Okay.
bring back Iran, democracy and freedom. That people are just that future that they're
Okay.
missing right now.
Okay. Ali, is the idea of Khamenei fleeing to Moscow plausible? And if so, would, in your mind, it lead to escalation or fragmentation, or even a long standoff, I suppose, would be a third option in terms of what happens on the streets?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the first question, I totally agree with what Kamyar said. It's totally plausible since the Venezuelan safe haven for Khamenei and the RGC has just evaporated. So this is, very, very plausible. Secondly, what happened, as to the question, what happens if Khamenei finally dies? I think, I mean, it's difficult to predict the future, but I think there is a strong likelihood that the Iranian people en masse going to show a lot of presence on the streets. At the same time, the regime side is also going to show some security presence on the streets. It gonna chaos gonna be a certain factor in this period. The regime was not successful to identify a successor for Khamenei, which is making everything much more messier. But I'm not sure if there are concrete plans, but I reckon that there is some plan of of who gonna show up as a kind of council in this kind of immediate period when Khamenei dies. But if you look at the Iranian elites' discussions since June, it's quite striking that everyone is, talking about Khamenei, Khamenei being something, a relic of the past, actually. So, in my view, the post-Khamenei era already started in June during the 12-day war, during which the supreme leader, who is not only the political and religious leader of the country, but also the military leader, just disappeared in a bunker and didn't leave that bunker even after the war ended. So, and since then, he has lost this kind of central authority within the Iranian system. He is still there, and this kind of factional infighting that has been going on since that war has is still a bit contained and doesn't come to the surface as long as Khamenei physically is still there.
Okay. And Nazanin, I'm going to ask you the same question, but also I'm going to tag on to it my final question for all of you, which is what do you think of the plausibility of a Khamenei exit? How do you think that would affect the street? And as a final question, what do you hope to see in the next week as things continue to develop? We're 9 days into this. What would you hope would happen over the next week in Iran?
Well, as far as Khamenei exit is concerned, we have heard this report of Khamenei going to Moscow and preparing his bags all the time. I mean, this is obviously, as both, your guests have said, it is plan A, plan B, plan C. Now that Venezuela is gone, there is Moscow, of course, but there's also still Qatar left, Doha, one doesn't know, maybe even Saudi Arabia in the deserts of Saudi Arabia near Mecca. That remains to be seen. But I'd like to also, I'm always an optimist, and I think that you always have to think for the best to arrive at the best. And I hope that in the coming days, we see there's a more convergence of between of thoughts and wishes and plans and collaboration between not only for Prince Reza Pahlavi and his supporters, but also between him and all the other elite. That at the end of the day, we are all Iranian, and that what we want is peace, stability, safety, and security. And without these three, we won't have any development and economic prosperity. And it is that we have to trust in ourselves and to reach out and hold hands with one another so that on the streets of Tehran and all the other of Iran across the country, we will see more collaboration and that more for a better future. And hopefully, once the regime is gone, we will have that opportunity to put our votes for what kind of a system we want, whether we want a republic or whether we want a monarchy. But Iran belongs to all of us, and we're all shareholders. And let's hope for peace and stability and security for Iran together, not apart from one another, because together we stand and divided we fall.
Nicely said. Ali, I know you're an academic, you're an analyst, not necessarily a soothsayer, but what would you hope to see over the next week or two in terms of the developments, and maybe what would you consider success, and if not emotionally, structurally, in terms of what's happening in Iran?
Well, as has been said by the other guests so far, what we need to see is more people joining in the street protests, more social groups. We've seen a great variety of them. We've seen new social groups taking part in it right now, relative to previous uprisings. So I think this is quite important. The longevity, the scope, the size, the extent of these street protests, because this is also going to define the repressive apparatus's abilities and capabilities to respond to them. And secondly, what we've seen in early 23 in the wake of the Women, Life, Freedom uprising, there have been a lot of declarations that were issued by relevant Iranian civil society groups about their political and economic vision post-Islamic Republic. I think looking at Iranian history, post 79 and pre 79, we see that the simultaneity of socioeconomic and political development is absolutely central. On economic development, the Shah was quite successful. On political development, he failed. And the Islamic Republic failed on both accounts. But I think this is something that Iranian society at large is demanding, political and also economic improvement, that is democratization and also social justice.
Final word to you, Cam. What would you hope to see in the next week or two?
I'm just going to go back to the first part of your question. You said, what do you think about Khamenei leaving? You know what? Why don't we just pause and just savor that moment and enjoy that, the feeling, the thought of the fall of the dictator. That's a good feeling. And when that happens, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen, but seriously, without Khamenei in power, there's going to be a power vacuum, and I can see chaos within the Islamic Republic factions, and a regime divided is good for the people. And I think that would probably unite more and more of people. And what I'm hoping to see for the movement is for people to come together, put aside their differences, their opinions, their political opinions, and stop even thinking about the outcome of what should happen, as opposed just focus on the process, which is right now just taking to the streets and keeping the streets, and use a strategy of attrition. And the government is going to do everything in their power to make this about economy and trying to improve the economy. That way, try to manage the protests and this uprising. But that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that people will see past that. People will continue to demand what they are actually owed by the government, which is freedom, democracy, and a future for all.
Nazanin in London, Ali in Berlin, Kamyar in Vancouver. Thank you all. Really, really appreciate you guys and the time you've given us today. Here's to more of these conversations. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Jian. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. It was good.
Thank you. Thank you, Kamyar. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Nazanin.
Thank you.
Khodafis.
Khodafis.
Thanks again to Nazanin, Ali, and Kamyar. We've started this Iran Rises series, and we're hoping to do this on Mondays and Thursdays, so we'll have another edition of this on Thursday, and for as long as this new revolution continues, and hopefully in a successful way. This is Full Time for Roqe for today. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together. Super Parisa, Savvy Roham, Tina, the photo and video queen, talented Anahita, and special thanks to Charming Kimia, the CK, Smart Pega, Methodical Kaveh, and the Rising Keon. Remember, we do have Roqe Live coming up, Roqe Live 6 on February 19th at the Richmond Hill Center for the Performing Arts. You can get tickets are now available by going to the link in our bio on our Instagram account. So you go to Roqe Media, go to the bio, there's the link for tickets. Richmond Hill Center for the Performing Arts in the Greater Toronto Area, February 19th. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us and sharing our content. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. You can find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi, the show at Roqe Media, and as ever, Mizun Bashi.